8 years ago, Wake County's EMS system introduced the first in a series of protocols designed to improve outcomes for people who suffer cardiac arrest in Wake County. Joining us today is Jeffrey Hammerstein from Wake County EMS. Thank you for being here, Jeffrey.
Hi, Sarah.
As well as Barney Barlow, who is one of the survivors. You all have met before, is that correct?
We have.
Jeffrey, tell for people at home who may not know about cardiac arrest, can you tell us real quickly what that is?
Sure. It's a basic medical term for a very critical situation in which your heart is not beating or not beating effectively. And without treatment, a person is not going to survive that more than just a few minutes.
Bobby, you suffered cardiac arrest a couple years ago and you were treated by Wake County staff. Can you tell us about this experience?
Well, I had just finished giving the eulogy at my best friend's funeral when I walked over, sat down by the minister, and passed out. And fortunately, I had two sons there that had CPR training, and they kept me going until Jeff and his crew arrived, and they took care of me, and fortunately, I'm here today because of that.
Tell us about, you've learned a lot about EMS and bystander CPR since that day. Tell us what some of the important things are to improve outcomes like what happened in your case.
Well, one of the most important things is to emphasize to people how important it is to get CPR training, because you never know when you're going to have the opportunity to save a life, and it may be somebody very close to you. The other thing that I try to always emphasize is how much support we need to be giving to the EMS people. Your first encounter with an angel may very well be somebody that arrives on a big loud truck with red lights flashing all over it.
Jeff, Bobby mentioned that he was treated on the scene. How are the treatments he received different than what happens in other places in the country?
Well, Sarah, in order for someone to do well with cardiac arrest and have a good outcome, there's like a whole domino effect of things that need to be in place. A couple of those components that we have here include the constant chest compressions. In addition to that, a treatment policy or protocol known as induced hypothermia. Now, what that actually does is when we get on the scene of a cardiac arrest, we're actually going to work to lower their body temperature just 3 or 4 degrees. When somebody's heart stops, obviously that's immediately critical to their survival. Strangely enough, when that pulse comes back with CPR, it actually is kind of dangerous and kind of hard on the brain and hard on the neurological system. What science has shown is that by lowering that temperature just a little bit, it makes that transition back into circulation through the brain, etc., a little smoother and a little less damaging. Once we start that cooling, the hospital will continue that for 24 to 48 hours and then slowly bring that body temperature back up. And we found with that introduction of induced hypothermia that survival with a good outcome, people who were then leading a life as effective and fulfilling as what they had before the event, that rate really started to increase after that.
Turning to our community, people in the community hear about bystander CPR. How do you learn about CPR and what kind of training is available? How do people go about getting more information about that?
There is training everywhere. Just a quick search of CPR and learn CPR, and maybe even searching out hands-only CPR. One of the things that's different about the way we teach community CPR now is that the focus is on hands-only, or the chest compression portion of CPR. I think a lot of people have traditionally been very afraid of the breathing part, afraid of whether that's dangerous to them, afraid of not doing it right, and even being preoccupied with the breathing. When you dial 911, those telecommunicators are going to give you instructions on how to do the hands-only CPR, and it's a matter of doing those chest compressions and doing them without interruption. Another thing that we find is that the interruption in and of itself is very detrimental to the outcome of the patient. We mentioned just a moment ago the dominoes. That most important domino is that first one, and that's bystander CPR. We've got to have that. We've got to get that going. EMS, fire department, we're coming as quick as we can, but those first few minutes are crucial for that person.
And again, about bystander CPR, you said your sons had training, and what difference did that make for you?
Well, it probably, as Jeff and some of his coworkers told me, that could very well have made the difference in me being here today and not being here today, that probably my two sons knowing CPR and happening to be there with me at the time probably was a major factor in saving my life.
It's a tremendous story. Jeffrey, each May you celebrate EMS Week. You want to tell us a little bit about what's coming up this year?
Absolutely. Again, this year, we'll have our celebration for the cardiac arrest survivors from the previous year. Again, those numbers jumped up, and we want to make sure that we invite them in, let them tell their stories. One thing that is so good for us as responders to hear and see are that these real people, not just patients, not just chart numbers, but real people come back and tell their stories and let us know that they're real people. They're not just numbers. And that's always good and fulfilling for us. And there's some pretty incredible stories, so we're happy to have them back.
All right. Thank you both for taking the time to be with us. There's more information on our website, wakegov.com, about EMS Week.